Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer podcast. I am your host, Andrew, and tonight we have the fullest house we have had yet for a Dollar Dogs and Beer episode. We have our two regulars, Jason and Joe, and then we also have two guests tonight. My younger brother, Alex, a huge Cubs fan who has begrudgingly over the years made me positive towards the Cubs unless they're playing Atlanta or unless I need them to lose for, placement. And then Zach is one of Jason's friends, as you can see by the jersey, one of the very, very good classic looks in baseball, the Cardinals. Guys, how are y'all doing tonight for the biggest house we have ever had on Dollar Dogs and Beer?
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm especially excited because we have Cubs and a Cardinals fan here tonight. So I am looking forward to our recap as we get into the night.
Yeah, this ought to be good. Joe, what's up, man?
Yeah, man, I'm doing pretty good. Had a really good weekend. Some positive stuff going on, and the Hoosiers they swept Purdue this year, so I'm feeling really good.
That was awesome. I was not expecting them to get the sweep, so congratulations to
Well,
your
and it's
Hoosiers.
the first time too that the men and the women have both swept.
No kidding.
Since 2003, so it's a lot of good stuff going on in Bloomington. That's for sure.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome, dude. Alex, what's up, man?
It's going okay. When I was on here last year, the Cubs had an off season technically, so at least there's more to talk about them this year.
Absolutely, including poaching a damn fine shortstop from Atlanta. And Zach, how are you doing, man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, it's we can figure out most of the Central pretty well, but this is definitely a panel that's a little biased against the Cardinals. So it's good. It's good to have an outside influence to talk us down off the let's bash the Cardinals at every opportunity we can.
Yeah, and I mean, the moment that we were starting to put this together and we were like, hey, let's see if we can find fans from different teams, I immediately thought of Zach. I was like, all right, I'm going to reach out to him now, and he's graciously joining us tonight, so I'm really happy that you're with us, bud.
Absolutely. Excited to talk some baseball here, get ready for the season. I've been listening to some of your previous episodes in preparation, so excited to be part of it.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one tonight. All right, so Zach, what are you drinking tonight? We'll start off with you, man.
Yeah, so I'm rocking the Trogs Grand Cacao Chocolate Stout tonight. Absolutely
Nice.
Delicious. If you're into stouts, this one, obviously chocolate, but almost a coffee kind of flavor. It's just so smooth. It's rich. It's like dessert beer.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
That sounds
it's
fantastic.
One of my favorites. Alex, how about you?
I got a Summit Triumphant IPA, brand new one. So far, so good. Definitely, though, not a sleety February night kind of a beer. This will be good come July for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Winter is finally here. It took all of February to get here, but we finally have some winter. We're going to get some snow here in the Lidditz area in the next hour or two. Maybe we'll get lucky enough that it will perhaps sit on the grass until tomorrow morning so we can at least see it and enjoy it. I kind of doubt it just because that's been how this wacky winter has gone so far. Some of our listeners know I work on a golf course. We started mowing the grass last week. And apparently from my coworkers who have been there for many, many years, including two that have been there for 20, Bent Creek has never started to mow grass as early as we have this year. That usually starts second week of March. So that's how wacky this winter has been. Joe, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, I've got a two for tonight. I've got the Smithix because, like we said last week, I'm in St. Patrick's Day mode, so I'm gearing up for that. So some fun festivities planned for that. And then because I like to bash them, Miller Lite, because Miller Lite sucks and so does the Brewers.
Oh, yeah, the brewer bashing is going to start early and often tonight. I have a feeling. All right, and guys, I am drinking tonight from Victory. I'm actually drinking an IPA, which is very rare, I understand. The seasonal fruitful IPA. My wife and I actually had this one over the weekend at Decades, and it is actually really good for an IPA. Yeah, definitely not super hoppy, so that's right up my alley. Because as Alex knows extremely well, he likes the IBUs as high as they go, and I like them just about as low as they go. So this is a pretty nice, like middle of the ground IPA, very tasty. And Jason, you've got a special one tonight.
Yeah. So before I get into that beer, I just have to point out, Zach, I was trying to find my Mike Schmidt powder blue jersey for you for tonight, just to join with you against with the Cardinals against the Cubs tonight. So I found this red championship shirt from the Barnstormers because, I mean, champions got to go together, you know, with the Cards being the reigning NL Central champs. So got that red Cardinals going on here. But yeah, so my beer tonight, it's really special actually because I stopped into Black Forest Brewery here in Ephrata in Lancaster County, PA, to get a beer as a gift for somebody. And Reese, who was behind the bar this time, he started talking baseball with me because I was wearing a Philly shirt. And it was really cool. He asked about the podcast, so I started telling him about what we do and our name. And he goes, "Oh, do you talk about beer?" I said, "We do." And he said, "Well, here, let me hook you up." So he actually hooked me up with one of their beers in a crowler. It is the Whistle Stop Amber Ale, and it is one of their more popular beers that they have. And I just want to give a plug for Black Forest. They are located just off of Main Street in Ephrata behind the old Americana Hotel. And delicious beer, great food. Reese, thank you so much for hooking me up with this, man. It's absolutely delicious. Very bold, very crisp. Yeah, Black Forest Brewery. Feel free whenever you're in the area, check them out because it is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, we've been there a bunch of times. My wife and I like to do the ushering at EPAC so we can get to see the shows for free. But what we'll do is we'll go to Black Forest beforehand for dinner. And I have never once been disappointed by either their food or by the beer that I have had there. Their beers are always extremely clean and crisp.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed every time I've had one. I'm a particular fan of the Shrek Tavern Stout myself.
Okay.
But
yeah. Now they are closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, so when you go, make sure you go Wednesday through Sunday. But they have outdoor seating. They have a patio. I believe that they actually recently remodeled a little bit, so their windows actually open up to create an open air atmosphere as well. So it's fantastic atmosphere. So yeah, Reese, if you're watching this, I know we gave you the information, or if you're listening to this later, thanks again. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, we were going back when it was still just the tiny room, so it's awesome to see that they've expanded and have more seats and everything now. All right, so let's roll into it tonight, guys. So the rule changes, we talked about it last time we were on, and we have already seen the impact of that in spring training game so far. The first automatic strike was called on Manny Machado back on February 24th. That was for drawing a batter pitch clock violation. The first automatic ball was called on pitcher John King of Texas, and it was on a 3-0 count, so it was the first ever automatic walk issued as well. So he said the batter was Vinny Pasquantino. Excuse me, I probably butchered that badly, of the Royals. He said, "So my first 3-pitch walk, history for me, that's for sure. I asked for the ball, but they had already put it back in play, pace of play, you know." So I thought that was a nice little quip on his part. And we also had the first ever game-ending walk-off called third strike. This was on Cal Conley of the Atlanta Braves. So this was apparently kind of a mess all the way around. He thought he had won the game with a 2-out bases-loaded walk-off walk. He took a few steps towards first base, bat still in hand. The umpire, John Libka, jumped out from behind home plate and indicated strike 3. He indicated that Connolly was not set in the box and the clock ran under 8 seconds, so it ended in a 6-6 tie. Now, here's the thing. The catcher must also be in the box behind home plate at 9 seconds, whether they're standing or crouched. The batter readiness is independent of the catcher being ready. So the league ruled that the catcher was I guess, enough in the box. The catcher was Ellen Marrero. He was slightly off the plate, adjusting something on his wrist as the timer reached 8. So Libka assumed that he was not set. So, it's a learning opportunity. Stay set, let the umpire make the call. Don't just assume because the umpire is going to see you jump out and say, no, you're not set, automatic strike. So, it is what it is. I'd rather have this happen right now during spring training than during the regular season when games actually matter. So, it is what it is. Of course, what happened to Atlanta, that just seems right for some reason that it would happen to us. So, before I get into the player reactions, guys, did you guys have any thoughts on this? Jason, I know you were actually watching some games. You were talking about in the chat that you definitely noticed an increase in the pace of play. You saw that game times were going down. Action was more continuous. What were your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. That was not distracting. There was a lot more action going on. The game time, I saw that with the games this past weekend, they averaged just around 2.5, maybe slightly over 2.5 hours, which is down from 3 hours plus, which is awesome, especially as far as keeping the game moving, because you don't have batters taking all that time. You don't have pitchers taking all that time. There were some pickoffs that were going over in the games I was watching, and the umps were keeping track of how many pickoff attempts there were. And the pitch clock, I know some teams in their spring training facilities have it right behind the dugout. That's not going to be the case in the regular season. They're going to be off camera. So what I ended up seeing, because the Phillies ballpark in Clearwater has it off to the side, you can't see it. It was very similar to when the shot clock or the play clock starts winding down in the other sports. You just saw the box start popping up in the lower left-hand corner with the timer counting down, starting around 9 or 10 seconds. But the moment the pitcher started their windup, it disappeared. So it wasn't distracting. I really liked it. I could see it being one of those, I don't mind it when it's called for my team, but I'll hate it when it's called against my team.
Yeah, like I said, I might know something about that. Joe, any thoughts?
I haven't had a chance to really watch anything yet, but I mean, we'll see what they think. I mean, Mark Burley was ahead of his time a bit when it comes to pitching. So, I mean,
yeah,
Mark Burley and watching Dylan Cease pitch, Cease is just like that. So.
Yeah, another guy I can think of quickly, Pedro Martinez. He was always very, very quick. Get the ball back, get the sign, and I'm going. I don't care if the batter's set, which actually caused Pedro to throw it, a couple guys over the years who were, not getting back in the box quick enough, notably Derek Jeter, which I got to say, the fact that we'll never have to see a batter step out, adjust every single piece of strapping and gloves and jock strap anymore is wonderful, because good God, I can't think of many batters that were slower and slowing things down than Derek Jeter was.
Nomar.
No, yeah, okay.
Nomar was worse.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you Nomar. Okay, so shortstops in the AL East. So we'll just blame all of them, blanket, and we'll move on from that.
I'll say we can't blame Joey Votto, because that guy doesn't even move once the pitch is thrown. He stands there just ready for the next pitch before it's even tossed back to the pitcher.
Dude, Joey Votto is ready to play banana ball when he retires, man. He is already locked in on the I'm here, I'm not moving, just throw the next pitch, let's keep this moving. And speaking of banana ball, the Savannah Bananas will be on some of the East Coast teams this summer. I am on waitlist. They've been on waitlist since last year. Good luck getting the tickets. I hope one of us is able to win that lottery, although I kind of doubt it because of how many people are in it, but you never know. So if you're lucky enough to get those tickets, go to it. It's going to be a fun experience, and shoot us a message. Let us know how it is, because it looks like it's so much fun on the ESPN broadcasts. I would love to see one in person as well. So maybe next summer they can, come up to Lancaster for the how many times have we won the best stadium in the minors contest at good old Clipper? Yeah, three
in a row.
There we go. So Savannah, come on up to Lancaster. We'd love to have you. Alex, Zach, do you guys have any thoughts on the pitch clock so far?
I support the rule change for the pace of play. Sorry.
Go ahead,
You
Zach.
got
Sorry.
that.
I'm glad we have the spring to kind of hopefully iron it out, right? Because I really don't want to see this personally when the games start to matter. I don't want to see automatic strikes, automatic balls, having, an impact on the outcome of a game. But the onus is on the players, right? So I mean, I think it's a decent system that they set up. I think that they've shown already that it's something that can work. And yeah, overall, I think it'll be a positive change.
Alex?
Yeah, for once, I think Rob Manfred actually made a good decision, which pretty happy with that. The only thing I question about the rule change is, yes, they want to speed up the pace of play, but they want to speed it up because they want more younger audiences to watch, right? I don't know if these rule changes are going to get younger audiences to watch, but it sounds like they did a good job finding a way to speed up the pace of play. So all in all, I can't complain.
I wasn't going to bring this up, but I do want to. I do want to bring up a tweet that I saw from Braves reliever Tyler Matzik. He pointed out that the length of baseball games and NFL games, while being a little different, if you look at the amount of action, it's basically the same. It's about 18 minutes of action for an NFL game, 18 minutes of action for an MLB game. So is it really that baseball needs to speed up pace of play, or does baseball need to figure out how to make the game a little more exciting to watch? Let batters spike their bats after big hits. Let pitchers, pump their fists on their chest when they strike a batter out. Things like that. So yeah, it's just, it seems like things are going well so far in the minor leagues. I think I read that it took about 4-5 weeks, and then players pretty much adjusted. You didn't see hardly any automatic balls and strikes called. So hopefully that's going to be the case as well for the major league guys, and spring training will iron it out. And once we hit the regular season, week 1, week 2, we won't see hardly many violations. So, we'll keep an eye on that going forward. Some player reactions. Robbie Ray of the Mariners said, quote, "I feel like it kind of actually helped me really gauge how much time you really do have. So for me, I feel like I work better when I'm working faster. So it kind of gave me a gauge to work off of." Nick Martinez of the Padres said, "It was fun, fast. I definitely felt it. A way to kind of alleviate the pressure of the pitch timer was having the pitch comm for me." And I think almost every team by the end of this year will be using pitch comm for that reason. For the majority of the time, Campy, which is catcher Luis Campuzano, was calling the game. But if I ever had an inkling or a pitch that kind of stood out to me that I wanted to use, I just pressed it. Glenn Otto of the Rangers, "I liked the pace of play. I liked how when I went and chased a foul ball to the dugout, they didn't start the timer until I got back to the back of the rubber. I think I was caught with a runner on base once where we had 1 second. I had to get it going, but we've been practicing with it. Change is always going to make some people uncomfortable, but I felt good with it." To get a batter's perspective, we got Mark Semien of the Rangers. "I was conscious about it on defense, just where I was standing, just to make sure I wasn't hitting the grass, because I know that's going to be a point of emphasis as well. I think it'll be better for offenses to get more hits on the ground, especially our left-handed hitters," and he's probably right about that. Matt Quattro, the new manager of the Royals, said, quote, "We were kind of joking before. We had no idea what to expect, but we thought maybe both sides would have 10 to 12 violations today, but I think there were only 2. All in all, I was pleased. I thought it was going to be a lot more chaotic than that." And Bruce Bochy of the he said, "The pitch timer puts the game at a good pace. We had a couple of violations, 2 or 3, but I thought there'd be more. I put it on 4, but I thought the guys did a good job with it." And, I was really happy to hear that from Bochy, because he's an older manager, a more traditional guy. I was really curious to see what he had to say about that. All right. So Matt, we've got a comment on here from Matt Mall. "I'm not thrilled about the concept of actually going to game and having it wrap up in 2.5 hours. For TV, absolutely, but something about physically being there, I'd personally like it to last a bit longer." And that's the thing. It's going to be a balancing act trying to figure out TV fans versus the fans in the game. Honestly, I really like, Joe, I think you brought it up last week, make the commercial breaks a little bit shorter and just use more PIP commercials like in between action, so you still get the same number of ads through there, but the actual commercial break and the break away from the action is shorter. That would be maybe a better idea, but we'll see. I can't wait to go to a game or two this summer and see what it's like actually in person, see if I notice a change or anything like that.
Yeah, I'll be there April 11th, so that'll be my first time seeing what happens in person. I'll definitely report back. Yeah, Matt, thanks for tuning in and putting that comment out there. I think something that I've seen out in the interwebs is people starting to request, after that Braves game ended with that walk-off strike, is getting rid of the pitch clock in the ninth inning to try and let the game have that more excitement. Because ninth inning, you start having those cat and mouse games between pitcher and batter, and maybe that's something that they start looking into. But yeah, I could definitely see Matt's point about wanting the game to last a little longer. If you're spending the money to be there, you want it to last a little longer.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing too, I know of a certain reliever who used to play for Atlanta, who is one of the slowest pitchers in baseball, Kenley Jansen, would love it if they'd turn that clock off in the ninth inning, because he has to completely change his windup this year. You know how he came set and then did that like jerk thing with his hip and came set again? That would be called a balk this year. So, that's something, maybe baseball and the Players Association will look at in the offseason, maybe turning it off in the ninth. That would be a good idea. I like that, actually. All right, so let's move on. We had some updates from the MLBPA, specifically from Executive Director Tony Clark. He's worried about Major League Baseball's new Economic Reform Committee. He said they're, quote, focused in on how best to depress players' salaries. And one thing this committee has, very quickly come up with, one thing to keep the escalation of salaries under control would be a salary cap. As always, Clark vows again to fight against any efforts by the league to implement a salary cap after the current labor deal expires in 2026. States that despite current concerns from owners about the estimated $300 million payroll chasm between the top and bottom spending teams, the answer is not to implement a ceiling. Quote, a salary cap is the ultimate restriction on player value and player salary. We believe in a market system. This is from Pirates owner Bob Nutting. We've got to see fundamental change in the economic structure of the game. I believe that we're positioned to do it, not this year or next year, but over the longer term cycle. Now, interestingly, a smaller market team, the Padres have gone nuts with spending over the last couple of years. Especially that too. Their owner, Peter Seidler, when asked about the concerns about the long-term viability of the Padres' approach to spending, he said, when we talk about risk, there's a risk to doing nothing, which is, I think, absolutely a great answer, because if you sit still, then you have teams like, off the top of my head, the Orioles and the Angelos family that just brings up young talent, trades it off, and doesn't hardly do anything in free agency. Or, look at the trade deadline last year when that team was pushing for a wild card spot. They traded away their clubhouse leader in Trey Mancini. So, that's another thing to look at there. Clark said the question about that should be asked in regards to one team's payroll versus another is whether or not that team is making a conscious decision to have its payroll there, or whether it has the ability to increase its payroll. There were teams that historically people would say couldn't, and they have. And in a world where there are organizations that have had success, they've had payrolls markedly higher than they have now when they have that success. And yet the industry has grown and begs the question of whether they can or they can't. And, one thing, and I've brought this up before on the show, especially during the CBA negotiations, I don't think a ceiling's the answer. I think the answer is there needs to be a floor set so that these small market teams that are just pulling the money out of the collective pot and then not reinvesting that in players to make their team better get penalized. Like, there needs to be a spending minimum that you need to get up to. I think that needs to be addressed long before we consider a salary cap on the top, because as the Mets proved last year and as the Yankees proved, I don't know how many times in our collective lifetimes, it's really hard to buy a World Series championship. It doesn't happen very often. And remember, those Yankees teams that were winning weren't the ones that were buying. Those were the ones with the homegrown talent. It was after that, when they started buying, that they started losing them. Look at the Diamondbacks and beyond. So, that's been that's been my thought for a while is if we start doing that and making these small market teams, Oakland, Miami, Tampa Bay, make these teams spend and invest in their teams, bring more talent into their teams. It's also going to make the product across the board better when you have more talent on these other teams, and it will spread that talent out more as well. Alex, why don't you go first on this one? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love what you said about the salary floor. The thing that I think about is kind of how the NFL does it, where like you have to spend 80% of the salary cap like over a 5-year span, or the percentage that you're under that, you essentially have to pay to the league and it gets distributed evenly. I think something like that would be a great way for baseball to do this. I think the thing that baseball holds on to is they hold on to the Rays right now, who for the past 15 years have been able to find consistent success not spending money. But that's one team. No other team has been able to do that consistently. And so there definitely needs to be a floor. And I think the fact that owners are looking at a ceiling is proof that they don't want a ceiling to have equity in baseball. They want a ceiling because they want to suppress salaries and they want to pay players less money. If they were really serious about it, they would at least include a floor along with that, which they're not really inclined to do.
Right, because that would force them to spend money, God forbid. Zach, what about you?
Yeah, I'm completely in agreement on the floor. Let's bring the bottom dwellers up before we start punishing the teams that are actually trying. But I think also it's hard to grow your product if you're cutting. So I just don't think that that's an answer for the overall health of the sport.
Let's look at two of the bottom feeding teams last year. You have the A's, which are going to be bottom feeder again because they keep sending their best players out and bringing in prospects. And look at the Nationals, who again have been sending players out and bringing in prospects. Let's face it, the attendance at those games are it's abysmal. They're in the bottom third or, probably the bottom 5, bottom 10 in baseball in attendance right now. And the only reason they're not dead last is because they bring in teams that bring fans in that want to see the opposing team. I mean, we saw this for years and years and years with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, well, it's still a problem with them. Tampa Bay doesn't have great attendance unless the Yankees are coming into town because everybody wants to see the Yankees because the Yankees have their spring training operation down there, so they have a ton of fans built into that community already. Adding the fact that Tampa Bay is a horrible ballpark that needs to be knocked down and destroyed and rebuilt with something that's not terrible. But, you don't bring talent in, people aren't going to come. It's, if I want to see prospects, I'm going to go drive 40 minutes north and go see the Senators and see what Washington's got in the pipeline. I'll go to Lancaster. I'll see the Barnstormers. Even though they're unaffiliated, it's still fun baseball to watch. I'll go see the Reading Phillies. There is a ton of minor league options. Lehigh Valley's not that far. Very easy drive for us to get to. If I want to see prospects, I'm going to go to the minor league games that are local and keep my money local. I'm not going to go to a major league game to see prospects. I'm just not.
Okay, but are you sure, as a Braves fan, that you want to say the A's should not be trading away their players?
I was waiting for somebody to say that since we have been the beneficiary of that the last 2 years. I was assuming it was either going to be Jason or you, so props to you bringing that. I don't care. If the A's want to keep being Atlanta's AAA affiliate, that's fine. The guys we've sent out to Oakland have not done a ton yet, so, right. Waters is, I believe, probably destined to either be a defensive replacement or be stuck in AAA for perpetualness. Langoliers is still the one I am not happy we had to give up, but you know what? It worked out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with Murphy.
So the one thing that I find comical about all of this is Pirates owner Bob Nutting talking about how, the ceiling and how there needs to be team spend, all this stuff. He is one of the worst culprits as far as not spending is concerned. I mean, he is such a terrible owner. He doesn't pay his youth to stay, he ships them out the moment he can. I mean, you have Brian Hayes and O'Neal Cruz on the left side of that infield that we'll be talking about in a little bit here. I would not be surprised if within the next year or two, they're gone because Nutting doesn't want to compete. If he wanted to compete, he would be trying more. I mean, being in Pennsylvania, like I feel like that all of us probably know at least a few Pirates fans. Whether they want to admit that they're Pirates fans or not is another story. But every single Pirates fan that I know cannot stand Bob Nutting. There was a fantastic picture that came out last year. It's Nutting taking a photo with a fan who, as he's about to take the picture, removes his jersey and says something about like Bob Nutting sell the team, something like that. And Nutting just looks at it, smiles, and is like giving the thumbs up. Like he literally did not understand what he was reading. I just find it hilarious that Bob Nutting is one of these people talking about spending.
Yeah, really. It's kind of like Manchester United fans and trying to get the Glazer family to stop destroying their team's finances and their team. Good luck with that, Man U fans. Looking at the Pirates here, I mean, they had a good run in the middle of the 2010 decade, 13, 14, 15. They did hit wildcard berths all 3 years. But beyond that, I mean, they hadn't done anything since 90 through 92 when they won the East 3 times. And before that, you have to go all the way back to the 70s when they last won the World Series in 71 and 79. I mean, this is not a team that is known in any way to have a history of sustained success. And not only that, the Pirates have a grand total of 0 NL Central titles. So they haven't even managed to win the division since the divisions were realigned after the last strike. So, the fact that Nutting was even trying to spout off about spending, that was funny as hell. Joe, do you want to rip on him too?
Well, look, I mean, like you guys said, the floor is obviously the thing that needs to be put in place. I mean, there's no reason that, Max Scherzer should make more money than half of these teams' entire payrolls. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we could talk about how stupid the money is that gets thrown around, the high side of it. But the fact that you've got teams who aren't spending as much as one player for one team, I mean, come on, guys, really, seriously.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, and you brought up Man U. I mean, look, my owner spent the last offseason trying to buy Man U, so
I wish they would.
Our owner, I should say.
Well, actually, no, I don't. I want the British billionaire oil tycoon to buy Man U and fix them up. please, dear God, keep the Ricketts family away from Manchester United. I don't think it'd be any better than the Glazers, and probably a little bit worse.
Can we keep Ricketts family away from the Cubs too, please?
Hey, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that too, man.
Just because I'm curious, Matt, if you're still watching us, knowing that you're a soccer fan as well, I'm curious to get your thoughts on that too at some point here. We could always circle back to it, but Matt's a pretty big soccer fan from what I remember, right, Zach?
I'm the big soccer fan, and I fooled Matt into liking my team, and now I feel kind of bad about it because I'm a
Arsenal,
Chelsea fan.
right? Chelsea. That's
Chelsea fan, and we are just, I mean, in the pits of despair right now. So he's used to it. Matt's an Orioles fan,
Raiders fan,
Pistons. I mean,
he's there.
Yeah, Matt said you did that to yourself. Man, Matt, you really are a glutton for pain and punishment, man. Talk about prior glories. All right. So speaking of spending stupid money, Jason, take it away with Manny Machado.
Yeah, so I do have to give props to Matt though, because he stands by his teams through thick and thin, usually thin. Yes,
Matt, we got you covered. We'll change.
Yeah, we've got you covered, Matt. Here, so we're gonna talk about Manny Machado here because he has finalized an extension with the Padres after saying he was originally going to be opting out at the end of the season. But the new extension is going to be for 11 years, $350 million, which will be taking his grand total to be 14 years, $470 million. As a Phillies fan and a Bryce Harper fan, I would like to thank Bryce for choosing to not have any opt-outs in his contract, because that is an absolute bargain right now. And it will continue to be a bargain for the length of that contract, essentially. But basically, Machado did say that he was going to opt out, but decided not to once he got that money. He is coming off of probably one of his best seasons. He hit 298, 366, 531 slash line with 32 home runs, 102 RBI, and a 6.8 WAR. So he had a fantastic season. He earned that money, but Padres are going to start handcuffing themselves here for the future, especially with all these different contracts, because I believe they also had Bogart sign in the offseason, They still have Soto. They have Tatis, which, I mean, maybe Tatis becomes kind of a bargaining chip for them, but they are locking up some players for a lot of money for a long time.
I mean, they did deplete the farm system pretty bad to bring Soto in last year. So, I mean, imagine the haul they had to get rid of to get Soto. Imagine what they could get back to get Fernando Tatis if they would offer him up. Although that said, I don't know that a lot of teams are going to be biting on that right now until they see how he is coming off of being off a year plus the suspension time. See, exactly what they're getting out of it. Plus, there's obviously some character issues that Tatis needs to work through, shall we say. So, yeah.
One thing about Tatis, though, is his average annual value is under $30 million. By the end of that contract, a $25-26 million a year contract is going to be nothing. And the dude's young. I still think they could still get up so much, even with all those issues that you said that are so true, though.
Yeah, probably. And let's face it, a talent like that does not get made available very often. I mean, to be honest, I was kind of shocked that the Nationals could not throw enough money to Juan Soto to keep him in Washington. So you just never know, because I didn't think he was going to go anywhere last year. So
part of that's probably the sale of the team. I mean,
that's true.
That into it, but I think, like you guys said, Tatis has to kind of, he would be a bargain. I agree with you, Alex, but he's got to prove that he can not be a cancer as well.
Yeah, very well said. All right, Jason, Zach, any other thoughts, guys? No, Jason.
No, so we'll hop right into our NL Central preview for this coming season. So we're going to start with the Pirates. They did tie with the Reds for the worst record in the division at 62-100. They ended up gaining one win between seasons. So, I mean, I guess you could say they were better at least. Their depth chart, you have Austin Hedges at catcher, backed up by Tyler Heineman. First baseman, they have not the guitarist, but Carlos Santana. They have Rodolfo Castro at second base, and then their left side of the infield is very solid with Ke'Bryan Hayes at third base and O'Neal Cruz at shortstop. Outfield, you have Connor Joe, Brian Reynolds, Cal Mitchell, and the prodigal son has returned, Andrew McCutchen, signing that one-year deal. I am very excited to see him back in Pittsburgh. I mean, he has a house in Pittsburgh. He named his son Steele, I believe. So, I mean, he was Pittsburgh through and through. You knew he was going to eventually end his career there. MVP year there.
And the trainer actually deliberately made sure his number was not touched by anybody who came from the time he left until he came back, to make sure that that number was waiting for his return.
Yeah, so I mean, his number is eventually going to be retired by the team, I think,
yeah.
or at least he'll be in their like wall of their individual team Hall of Fame or something. I no doubt, but
that jersey's going to get retired day 2, the year after he retires. It's not going to take long.
Yeah, but then they also have Ji-Man Choi as their designated hitter. Yeah, there you go, Matt. Back to win it all. I didn't realize that I mean, maybe they could win 4th in the division, but
anything's possible. Anything's possible.
Their starting rotation has JT Brubaker, Mitch Keller, Vinny Velo, Vince Velasquez, Rich Hill, and then Rowan C. Contreras. And their relieving core, they have David Benner as their closer, Yeri De Los Santos, Colin Holderman, Will Crow, and Dwayne Underwood. No big re-signings here, but their new acquisitions. You have Andrew McCutchen, 1 year, $5 million. They did sign Rich Hill, Carlos Santana, Ji-Man Choi, Jarlin Garcia, and they did get Austin Hedges and Vince Velasquez. So they're almost half of an entirely new team based off of offseason acquisitions. They did lose Kevin Newman and Zach Thompson in free agency here. Yeah, so basically, general thoughts on the previous season, what they did this offseason. They didn't do anything major. Gladkutch is back. I don't see them doing much of anything. I think they'll beat the Reds. I think they'll be above the Reds for sure. So I will probably take them at... They won't have 100 losses. They'll be close. I'm going to take them like 66, 67 wins.
Okay. 66 or 67. Okay. Jason, may I just compliment your Santana joke? That was quite smooth.
Thank you.
So, you look at, sure, they spent some money. They didn't spend big money anywhere. They got a whole bunch of veteran or young talent on the cheap. The most they spent was on Rich Hill, 1 year, $8 million. And let's be real, the $8 million is because he's been in the league for so long. He's just entitled to such a higher base salary than everybody else is.
Bob Nutting not putting his money where his mouth is.
Shocker, right? So for me, Jason, I don't know that they do have the talent to beat the Reds, because as the Reds start to bring some of these young guys up, and if Joey Votto can rebound again, I'm going to keep them right around where they were this year. I'm going to say I'll keep them at 99 losses, 63 wins is my prediction. Joe, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I think 68, 69 wins. I think McCutch is worth a couple. Vinny Velo is worth a couple wins, and Rich Hill is worth a couple wins. That left side of the infield is the best left side in the entire division, I think, or pretty close.
Really?
Left side, yeah.
I feel like Zach might have something to say about that.
What?
Zach's got something to say about that.
Top 2 anyway. Wow. Let's go with that. Top 2 anyway.
I don't even agree with that, dude. I'm sorry. It's a great left side, but
yeah, I mean, it's a solid left side. It's one of the best. Let's put it that way. It may not be above the Cardinals, but it's one of the best.
Dude, I'd take your left side over theirs.
I don't think I'd take Patrick Wisdom over Brian Hayes. I'm sorry, no.
No, but I'd take Dansby over O'Neill.
Well, no, right, but I'm talking about short and third together.
I know.
I don't trust whoever they're putting at third, because we're not really sure who that is yet. So
what if they move Nico to third instead of second?
Well, then obviously that might change my mind, but that's not going to happen.
No, I know it's not.
So
I'm just trying to muddy the waters.
I think Edmund Arenado and Hayes and O'Neill, those are the 2 best left sides of the infield in this division, without a doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
So I think they're gonna be somewhere around 68, 69 wins. They're gonna overtake the Reds, and if Milwaukee implodes, who knows?
Boy, wouldn't that be great?
The one thing I would say about the Pirates too is you have to wonder how much the Brian Reynolds crap is gonna affect everything, team chemistry and all that nonsense.
Yeah, that's
with the financial stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely something we'll have to watch out for. Alex, what do you think?
I agree they have one of the best left sides of the infield, but they're not better than the Cardinals. I hate to say it. I feel like I'm stabbing my own heart by saying the Cardinals are good at something, but the Cardinals have a better left side. No, I'm going to put them at I'm going to 68, high end 70, because I think Kutch is going to make them have an energy that they haven't had in years. I think he's going to have a much bigger impact off the field on that team and helping them win than he will on the field. So I'm optimistic for the Pirates. I really am. 68, 70.
All right. Zach?
Yeah, I think other than Joe's horrible infield take, I'm pretty much exactly in agreement with him, being a little bit more optimistic. I have them at 68 wins as well, but I'm so happy for this fan base that they have Kutch back. Look, I mean, the moves aren't going to scare anybody. They're not going to be good. But, as a Cardinals fan, knowing what it meant to have Pujols back last year, it's going to be a similar feel for the Pirates fans this year. It's just going to be a fun year for them. And I agree. I think Kutch can contribute as, a player and also as a mentor on that team. I think he's a good guy to have around. Agree again with the Brian Reynolds thing. What's going on there? It seems like they're kind of far apart on their contract talks. I think he at one point might have asked to be traded. So are they seriously committed to keeping him, or is it all kind of just a mirage to appease the fans and say, oh, we tried? That I think that could definitely hurt them a little bit. But, I like bringing in Kutch. I like bringing in some of these other veterans to pair up with the homegrown guys. So I have them improving a little bit, 68 and 94, and not in last place.
I have to say, considering the owner, Reynolds is gone. He's as good as gone.
The one thing I also would like to say about the Pirates is that bullpen, Bednar is really, really solid. I mean, reliever of the week many times last year.
Yeah.
So,
Joe, how many wins do you think the Pirates have this year?
Yeah, 68, 69, somewhere in that window.
Yeah, I got his marked.
Yeah.
It was fun because it was today. Yeah, today that the Phillies were playing the Pirates for a spring training game, and they had Kutch mic'd for it.
Oh,
and Mundo Sosa, so there's a name, Zach. He blasted a 3-run shot that was no doubt off the bat because the wind was blowing out as it was. And Kutch was in the middle of talking to the Pirates broadcasters, and he just goes, "Oh my God, that's not coming back. That wind's not going to keep that." Like he just started having the fun with it. I feel very fortunate to have gone to watch him be a part of the Phillies lineup for a few years because, I mean, between his rock paper scissors home run with Dusty Wathan and Uncle Larry in the dugout, I mean, he's just a fun guy. He's enjoying playing a kid's game.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the other last place team of the division last year, the Cincinnati Reds, who again 16 and 100. Now they had a major drop in win change from 2021, where they went from a team that damn near had a wild card berth to dropping 21 wins between 2021 and 2022. The youth movement is all in down there. So the depth chart, you've got catcher Tyler Stevenson backed up by Austin Romine. Honestly, a good catching duo. First base, Joey Votto. Second base, Jonathan India. Still one of the most exciting second basemen to watch in the game, I think. Spencer Steer at third, Jose Barrio at shortstop. In the outfield, Jake Fraley, Nick Senzel, Will Myers. They also have Fraley listed as top DH, so clearly a lot of position battles up for the taking right now. Now, not a terrible rotation when you're led by Hunter Green and the 103-mile-an-hour fastball. Is that what he's up to now? The thing goes by you so fast you can't even tell. Although it is straight and relatively easy to hit, as we saw somewhat last year. Also, Nick Lodolo, Graham Ashcraft, Luke Weaver, Luis Sessa in the rotation. Closer, Alexis Diaz, Lucas Sims, Tony Santillan, Tejan Tony, and Buck Farmer. No major re-signings, new acquisitions. They did pick up Will Myers in a 1-year, $6 million contract with a $6 million mutual option for 2024. Kevin Newman on 1 year, $2.662 million, and Luke Malley 1 year, $1.175, as well as outfielder Nick Solak. They did lose Mike Moustakas, Kyle Farmer, Jeff Hoffman, Mike Minor, Donovan Solano. So, yeah, this is still going to be a bad team. No doubt about that. No doubt about it. I don't know. The talent they're ready to bring up, if it's ready to go this year, it's a team that could surprise and jump to fourth place, and that's probably about the ceiling. So I'm going to say 65. I'm not going to go too big, but I think they're going to do a little better than last year because, good God, that was awful. Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, man, it's hard to get excited about the Reds. They don't have a lot going on. They did get 2 top 50 prospects back from the Mariners in the Luis Castillo trade last year. So that's good for the future. Problem is they're not expected to play in 2023. So not a whole lot in the way of reinforcements coming this year. I am sort of looking for a bounce back year from Jonathan India, who was pretty bad last year following his Rookie of the Year 2 years ago. I think he's going to bounce back and be better. I think he also missed quite a few games last year.
Yeah, he was hurt a lot.
That combined with the fact that they started last year 3-18. I mean, just historically awful. I don't think they're going to start that poorly again. So I will give them an extra 2 wins this year. I'm going 64-98, last place.
I completely forgot that they started out 3-18 last year.
And ironically, 2 of the wins were against Atlanta.
Oh. Something about Atlanta against NL Central teams, man. Jeez.
I guess India will have the benefit of the bigger bases this year. He'll be able to try and swipe more bases and whatnot.
Yeah, we'll see. Zach, what was your win prediction again?
64-98.
Okay. Perfect. Alex, go ahead.
I'm going to go big here. Their win total is going to start with a 5. I'm going to go 58-59 wins here. Look, over the past 10 or 15 years, the Reds have had so many times where they've had a great farm system or great young players. And every single time they get maybe one person that they trade away a year or two later. And that's kind of what they've done. They're supposed to be somewhat, not rising, but the next few years, next 2, 3, 4 years, they're supposed to start to be good again. I don't see it. Their starting pitching has never panned out when they've tried to develop it themselves over the past few years, or they've traded the 1 or 2 away that they have developed well. I'm going 58-59 wins for them. I can't give them any more.
So you're essentially calling them Pittsburgh West?
I think it's calling them Oakland East.
Nationals North. Joe, what do you think?
I'm with Alex on this one. I'm going to go sub 60, 58. Why not? Mm-hmm. There's nothing to be excited about here. You feel really bad for Joey Votto being stuck on an awful team.
Yeah.
Just awful.
And especially, since Joey Votto is the man who, if he says it's not a strike, it's not a strike.
Yeah. If Joey Votto doesn't swing, it's not a strike. So, look, I love Joey Votto. I think he's awesome when he's mic'd up. He's excellent. He's a great interview during games. I mean, they had him that whole inning for the Field of Dreams game, and that was just exciting to listen to.
Yeah, that was one of
a
the
class act of a
best
human
innings.
being. A great man on and off the field, and I feel so bad that he's stuck on a garbage team.
Yeah, and he probably wouldn't even agree to be traded anywhere anyway. So, all right, so you said 58, Joe?
Yep,
All right.
58.
Jason, how low are you going?
I'm going to be right around where Zach is, I think. I think that they do have some decent players. I think they have some untapped potential. But like Alex said, the likelihood of them actually getting that potential is probably slim to none. So I'm going to give them a very, very small increase. I'm gonna take them at what were they at last year? 62?
62.
62. I'll give them a couple wins. I'll go 64.
Okay. All right. So that's the Reds.
I do like, Andrew, how in our notes here we have biggest remaining need, and for some of these teams it's
the entire team.
The entire team, or too many to actually list.
Yeah. There's a reason I just leave that blank and let you all run with it, because it would take way too long for me to type out biggest remaining needs for a lot of these teams.
Like if you were to ask me, you'd be like, hey, Jason, what do you think the Reds' biggest remaining need is? I would just answer with yes.
Ownership.
No, I would just say yes.
Deep pockets. There's so many needs for the Pirates and the Reds, and really all the bottom dwelling teams. I mean, I understand when you're in a full rebuild, not spending money, but good God, spend a little bit at least. Give your fans a reason to show up and put a paper bag over their faces. Because right now, the Reds and the Pirates fans, well, the Pirates maybe a little more, but because of Kutch being back, but the Reds fans, other than what's possibly Votto's farewell season. What other reason other than seeing Hunter Green pitch do the Red fans have to come out? Other than, Jonathan India. But that's what else is there? There's nothing. All right, Joe, Alex, Cubbies, take it away, guys.
Sure. Last year it's 74 and 88, which if you told me that in late July, I would have told you were nuts. That they would have gotten, past 62, because it felt like they were on the border for a while. I don't know about you, Alex, but it felt like we're chasing 62, and then to get to 74, that was kind of a high bar that I was not expecting to get to. So it was a +3 from 21. It wasn't a significant rise, but if you look the way we kind of felt they were going, I'll take it. Depth chart wise, Gomes and Barnhart at catcher, Hosmer and Mancini at first, Nico at second, Wisdom, Morel, and Nicky Madge at third, and Dansby at short. Alex, why don't we talk about the infield a little bit, and then we can go, field by field here.
Yeah, the thing that I loved about the Cubs that won the World Series is we had both a fun and an impressive infield. It was our identity, was our infield. And I do feel like we're getting back to that a little bit. I think we got the best value out of the 4 big shortstops with Dansby Swanson. With only 7 years, the money that we had to put out for him, I'm really satisfied with that move. I love Nico at second. I really do think he's going to turn into something. The corners and catcher, though, are question marks for me.
Why do you have a question mark at catcher there, Alex?
I'm sorry, Jason. I forgot. Tucker Barnhart, MVP this season, calling it.
I'm just going to have to stoke the flames a little bit.
Honestly, I'm not sorry that Wilson Contreras is gone. I'm not. We all knew that was going to be coming. Again, I hate to say nice things about the Cardinals, but I'm glad he's going to an upstanding organization and he's going to replace one of the all-time greats. Like, great for him. I'm really happy for him. We could have done something to replace him. We did absolutely nothing. We could have done something.
Yeah, I mean, Oakland was shopping Sean Murphy pretty hard.
What I will say about catcher is that Yan Gomes had a much better rapport with the pitchers last year. It seemed like he was much better defensively than Wilson is, which made a big difference with the pitchers there. And Barnhart is more of a defensive catcher too. I mean, the biggest thing we're losing with a guy like Wilson is the offense. So, you know, the fact that they picked up Hosmer, Mancini, you got Matt Mervis, you know, on his way up, you know, in camp right now. Look, they'll have the power there. It's just a matter of how quickly it matures in seasons. So I think they can replace the offensive firepower of Wilson. It may not be right away, but it will be, you know, as the season goes on. You know, so defensively, I'm happier with where they are there. You know, from that standpoint. So.
Yeah, and I think given our manager, we like catchers that can frame pitch as well, right? So it makes sense the direction that we go. It's just, will our offense be able to keep the strikeouts down? That's where I think it's our Achilles heel for the past 5-6 years, and I think it's going to be again this year.
Yeah, I mean, if we can keep Wisdom out of the offense, you know, the other 4 days, and whoever else we put at third is better, then we're fine. But you know, Wisdom has a good game every 5th day, so that's kind of, you know, he's the.
That's usually only good if you have a pitcher on the mound.
I know that's where I was going with that. You know,
this is starting to sound like Spawn and Sane and praying for rain.
So yeah. Look, I think, you know, with Nico and Swanson, I agree with you, Alex. We got the best of the shortstops value wise, without a doubt. And I'm thrilled with it. I mean, you know, that's you know, he was easily close to gold glove caliber when he was at second to begin with. He should have been a finalist last year at short and wasn't. So you got the gold glove shortstop, and you got a guy who's a perennial contender for a gold glove final spot at second. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Alex.
Well, no, I was going to go and look at some outfield here, so you go.
I was going to say, I will say that while I wanted Turner the most out of all those shortstop free agents to come to Philly, my second choice was absolutely Dansby Swanson.
Yeah,
Matt,
and Correa was last. That's all we know. That I did not want him.
Yeah, I don't think anybody did, as evidenced by him jumping to his third team, aka the original team. Matt asks, is Trey primarily playing first? I think right now the plan with Trey Mancini, from what I have read, and Alex, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mancini's basically going to be bouncing around, giving guys days off. He'll be DH a lot, and then he'll spell Hosmer at first. He'll spell one of the outfielders, since he can play any of the outfield positions as well as first base. That's what I had heard was the plan with Mancini, and frankly, I think that's a great idea with him to use his flexibility like that to spell guys and give them a break in the field. Sound about right, guys?
That's what I've been hearing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Alex, about the outfield?
Yeah, I mean, I can actually be okay with our first base catcher and third base if our outfield plays like they should. I like Ian Happ. Last year, he finally started to maybe tap into more of his potential, you know, after so many years of trying. I'm cautiously optimistic about Bellinger. I actually really am. He gives me, in very different reasons, but he gives me a little bit of Dexter Fowler vibes for the Cubs, where I think he's going to be able to come in and add a little bit more energy to our lineup that we haven't had. He has the potential. I think he was squandering away on the Dodgers, and I think he's not going to be an MVP again, but he'll get back closer to that. And then Suzuki, another year now to adjust. He's just going to go out there and slay. I really believe so. I think he's going to be great. So I actually am optimistic about our outfield, but it's risky and could blow up in our face.
Yeah, I think I look, Belly was in the complex like the very next day, like working on his swing as soon as he got signed. Like it was something he was right away in camp trying to work on things. So I really like what he could potentially bring there. I love Ian Happ. I don't think he has to spend any time in Iowa. I don't think he's got to do any of that stuff. So look, and I think they ought to wrap him up as soon as they can. Extend him and get that business taken care of earlier on. That'd be great. Him and Nico, obviously. Seiya, look, the guy put on what was it, 30 pounds? The guy looks jacked as can be. He put on a ton of muscle. He is hurt right now, awaiting an MRI for an oblique strain or something. So how much is that going to put him back, and how much is that going to fix some things or hurt some things? But when you have prospects like Brennan Davis, you've got PCA. I'm not worried. If Seiya has to spend some time getting better, and we get PCA for a couple of weeks, I'm good with that.
Yeah, isn't that a pity, swapping Say out for PCA? That's such a pity.
I do think, though, that your points with Bellinger are pretty good, because I can see, while he's not going to repeat his MVP year, playing in Chicago at a hitter-friendly ballpark and having that lack of a shift now, his average is probably going to go up. He's going to get those home runs to carry out. So I think you're definitely going to see a nice bounce back year from Bellinger. I mean, change of scenery. How often does it help players? It very frequently it does.
Yeah, and you made that Dexter Fowler comparison, Alex, and I think it's fitting that Fowler is now on the marquee staff, so he's around the guys all the stinking time now. So there's a ton that he can learn there from him, and I'm optimistic about what they've got. Took them a while to get started, but once they got started, I'm not too upset.
No,
Zach, I'm curious to get your thoughts on the Cubs for this year.
Well, I just don't like all this talk about Dexter Fowler. Can we not talk about Dexter Fowler? I mean, his tenure with the Cardinals was abysmal. And as frugal as we are in free agency, which I'll talk about later, he's one of the few that we actually went out and gave, I think it was a 5-year, $75 million deal or something like that. Of course, one of the times we actually dip our toes into free agency, we get that. So no more of that, please. But I'm curious, what do you guys have in terms of win projections? Because I want to know how optimistic / delusional you are before I go.
Do you guys want to do a quick recap of the starting pitchers and the relief corps before we do the wins there?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, all you, Joe.
Yeah, so, look, Stroh, the professor, Drew Smiley is back. Jameson Taillon looks really good already. Made that guy look foolish today on Pitching Ninja. So you got
that was
absolutely
beautiful pitch.
Look, when your fifth or sixth or seventh starter is Justin Steele and Adbert, Aslake, how good is he going to be coming off the injury? He's probably going to be more in the bullpen, I think. One guy who's missing, and it's probably because we know what his role is going to be. He's probably the bullpen, but could be a starter, is Keegan Thompson is on your list here. And I think, he had a really good year last year, and I expect more of the same once that role is more defined. So, I love what we've done as a club. It just took a while to get there.
Yeah, I agree. Also, we have the best named player in the division with Adbert Alzolay. Great name, absolutely MVP name there. I agree. Our bullpen could go either way. We're not going to be as good as we have been, I don't think. I think that's a little bit lower, which is going to hurt us, but decent starting rotation. And I really do think we're going to get a lot out of all of our acquisitions with Swanson, with Talion, with Bellinger, 3 big acquisitions there. But then Hosmer and Mancini as well with the infield. We're going to get stuff out of them. And then Tucker Barnhart will get a little bit, but and then Brad Boxberger as well. I mean, all of those players are going to have an impact this year. Yes, it's going to stink to lose Wilson Contreras. Wade Miley maybe a little bit. I love Frank Schwindel, but he's not. He was nothing last year. So, yeah, all in all, I'm optimistic about what we're going to be at, but I don't think we're actually in our win total going to see a huge jump. So I'm going to put us at, I have to be more optimistic than I probably should be. So I'm going to go 77 to 79 wins, probably closer to 76, 77, but I'm going to go 77 to 79.
All right. So Alex says Tucker Barnhart is MVP and 77 to 79 wins. Okay. All right, Joe, what do you got?
You know what? I'm going to be bold. I'm going to go 500.
Okay.
A 7-win jump. I think they've done enough to put themselves in position. Let's put it that way.
Okay. 82. All right. All right, Zach, go ahead. I know you're chomping at the bit.
All right. So, yeah, I would probably split the difference between you guys in terms of wins and go with 79 wins. But just to kind of talk about what the Cubs did in the offseason, I like their offseason. As you guys kind of mentioned, getting Swanson on that deal, I think, was really good for them. I do want to say I don't think he's a superstar. I don't think that Dansby Swanson can be the best player on a playoff team. So they have work to do in terms of kind of, building up guys around him, but they have him for 7 years. So they have time to do that. I do think that there was a little bit of kind of throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall to see what sticks. You got Bellinger, Hosmer, Mancini. Let's see if any of these guys can kind of hit. So to me, that makes them really hard to project. But like I said, I do think that they got better. And I think they're interesting if they can play well enough in the first half to where potentially they're buyers at the deadline. Who knows? Anything can kind of happen. I think they're in that zone of maybe they're an interesting team. Maybe they can improve their team midway through the year and push for a wild card spot, but I'm not expecting them to. So I have them about 79 wins and third place.
Okay. Jason?
Yeah, I like the Cubs moves that they had in the offseason. I like their future. They loaded up on prospects with their trades over the last season. I do think that they're still a couple years away from really competing for the division. They need some of those younger guys to develop before they come up. So I agree. I'm going to have them in third place in the Central again. And I'm going to take them right around 78 wins.
78. Okay. So, Zach, having watched Dansby Swanson ever since he came over from Arizona, he absolutely can be a guy that carries a team in the playoffs. I watched him do it when the Braves won the World Series because it kind of got unnoticed because of how well Soler had caught fire in the World Series and how well Freddie was hitting. But Dansby was right there with them, matching them with home runs in that deciding Game 6. Dansby can absolutely carry a team. He's a great clubhouse leader. He's not a superstar. I do agree with that. I think the Cubs overpaid a little bit, but I don't think it's an excessively bad overpayment like the very first contract Carlos Correa was looking at this offseason or the second one. I think those were hideous, gross overpayments. That's the Cubs defense, especially up the middle, that's freaking beautiful. You guys could very well sweep the middle of the infield Gold Gloves this year. I would not be shocked by that. And yes, Joe, I do agree with you that that was a very bad snub not having Nico as a finalist, at least for Gold Glove last year. That was complete crap. He should have been a finalist. I do like what the Cubs did. I'm a little more optimistic. And so here's the thing. My wife's boss, Michael, listens in, and he's heard me several times take shots at the Brewers and why I don't like the Brewers. Well, let me explain some of that a little bit because, I've always been sympathetic towards the Cubs because of my little brother. Plus, a beautiful ballpark. And last time I was in Chicago, it was unfortunately in the fall. So it was long after baseball season was over. And, there was no opportunity to see a game, but it's just a beautiful stadium to walk around. It's a really neat neighborhood, Wrigleyville. Alex, I don't remember what year it was back in the early 2000s, but you guys needed the Brewers to beat either like the Reds or the Pirates or one of the bottom feeders to help you guys out. They had their ace lined up against a 4-5 and they couldn't do it. And they got swept. And ever since then, you said after that series was over, God, you can't trust the Brewers to do anything right. And ever since then, I have long felt that way. And because of that, the Brewers have phenomenal starting pitching. We'll get to that in a minute. I still don't trust that offense, and I don't think anybody should. And because of that, I think the Cubs could jump the Brewers and jump up towards second place. You might see like a Red Sox 2021 kind of thing where they might make that jump a little bit earlier than expected. I don't think they have enough to chase that last wild card spot yet. The NL is way too strong, and again, 2 wild cards are going to come out of the East, and the other one's going to come out of the West. I think that's almost guaranteed. But I think the Cubs have just enough, even with the strikeouts, because I hate to say it, guys, Dansby is a strikeout machine. He is
Javi 2.0.
Not that bad. He's not that bad because he can actually play good defense.
Patrick Wisdom is Javi 2.0.
Dude, Patrick Wisdom was outpacing Javi last year. Remember, we had that chart running for a while.
We were tracking it, man. We were tracking it.
Like, I love Dansby. He is streaky as hell. He is either hot as anything and will knock the snot out of the ball, or he gets cold and strikes out a lot. So, yeah, strikeouts will be a problem. I think the Cubs have enough to get ahead of the Brewers. I'm going to say the Cubs get all the way up to 84, 85 wins. They are not catching the Cardinals. Not going to happen. I wish they would, but it's not going to happen.
A Cubs fan, me, I had the lowest win projection here. That's shocking to me.
I will say, Alex, I'm at least proud of you for rubbing off on one of your nephews so that there's one less Braves fan out there.
Well, let's face it. Ben will. I love Ben to death, my youngest son. Ben will do anything he can to get under my skin because I'm an oldest, he's the youngest, and I think he knows that. And I think he just loves picking teams that will just irritate me to the end of time. And I love it. Honestly, I really hope one of these years, I woke Jason up for the end of the Braves winning the World Series back in 2001. I hope I can wake Ben up in a couple years to see the Cubs win a World Series too, so we can come down and see that.
21, not 01, by the way.
Yeah, sorry, I meant 21. Yeah, so
01 would be the Diamondbacks with the Luis Gonzalez walk-off.
And Dad's chiming in. We're working on Ben. He's trying, I believe, to switch Ben back to a more neutral Braves allegiance. But yeah, Dad, work on it all you want. I don't see that changing anytime soon, sadly.
I mean, if he really wants to get under your skin, he just needs to become a Mets fan.
Oh God, please no. Jason, you've met him. You don't want him to be a Mets fan because he'll be trying to get under your skin too.
Oh, I mean, just the experience from last year when they were sweeping the Phils. Because I believe they swept the Phils both times last year. Yeah, and I'm like, I have little Ben called like, hey, Jason, did you see that the Cubs beat the Phillies all the games? I'm like, yes, Ben, I did. Thanks.
If you guys think Benji has any kind of a chance of not being a Cubs fan, like I will ever allow that to happen.
Oh, I know that's crazy. I know that's not going to happen, dude.
I will support Ben's obvious shirts addiction. I will gladly help him with that.
Please note that was said on air. Joe, I will be sending you a bill shortly.
Let's get some Brewers action going. While we're talking about the Brew Crew, they did end last year 86-76. They did get second in the AL Central, missing out on that second wild card spot by a game the last wild card spot, the third one, to the Phils. They did lose 9 games difference between 2021-2022. Their infield, they have catcher William Contreras, who they got from the Braves, as well as Victor Caratini. First baseman, for all you Scrubs fans out there, whenever Rowdy Tellez is up and does something good, I'm always, Rowdy, no. And then you have Luis Arias, Brian Anderson, and Willie Adames. And then your outfield, you have Christian Yelich, Garrett Mitchell, and Tyrone Taylor. DH, you have Jesse Winker. And then their rotation is still solid. Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, Freddie Peralta, Eric Lauer, Adrian Hauser. And then your relieving core, you have Devin Williams and Matt Bush, Hobie Milner, Peter S. Yeah, we're going to go with Peter S. And then Javi Guerra.
Man, I love Polish last names.
Man.
How do you get Krzyzewski out of that?
And then no re-signed players, new acquisitions. They did get William Contreras, as mentioned, from the Braves in a trade. Wade Miley, Jesse Winker, who they got in a trade from Seattle, as well as Brian Anderson. They did have. They also did get Abraham Toro in that Seattle trade. Their losses, they did take a little bit of a hit here with Hunter Renfroe, Colton Wong, Jace Peterson. They did lose Andrew McCutcheon, which he didn't have as much of an impact on them as he will with the Pirates, as well as some others there, like Brad Boxberger. But the Brewers, they didn't really do much of anything to impress me other than kind of develop a little bit more at the catcher position. But even then, William Contreras he still needs to develop a bit. I mean, Andrew, you saw him with the Braves.
William Contreras is better off as a DH than he is as a catcher. He is a terrible defensive catcher. And let's face it, Travis d'Arnaud is not great either. We saw his noodle arm way too many times in the postseason over the last 2 years, which is why I'm so glad they got Murphy. But d'Arnaud could frame pitches and d'Arnaud could bat. Contreras can just bat. He can't frame pitches. He doesn't have a great arm. He's really better off as a DH than he is as a starting catcher, which is why I think Atlanta was willing to give him up in the trade to get Sean Murphy.
Yeah, and I mean, I think while their offense is still solid, I think where they're missing right now is in their bullpen. They gave up Josh Hader last year, and they didn't really replace him properly. So I think that this bullpen is going to let them down a good bit this year. So I think you're going to see. I think you're going to see them drop maybe a couple wins. They have the potential to be around where they were last year, but I'm going to take them, I think, at 84 wins, and they're still going to get set second in the NL Central behind the team who is far and away the best team in that division, the St. Louis Cardinals.
Our dad brings up a good point. The Brewers infield also could be a bit of a carousel this year. Yeah, absolutely. There is only the only guy in that infield that I would trust for any kind of consistent production is Rowdy Tellez with his power. And let's face it, that's him and Contreras. That's really largely the only power bats. I mean, Yelich used to have a good power bat. That's long disappeared. Jesse Winker, that's a curious move because he was a really bad fit in Seattle because going from a small, cozy ballpark like Cincinnati to that very, very, very massive outfield in Seattle, that was never going to be a good fit for Winker with the type of game he likes to play. Milwaukee's a bit of a smaller park, so I think he will show improvement at least for the Brewers as either as outfield or as DH. Now that said, I still think the Brewers have probably the best starting pitching rotation in the division, or pretty close to it. I would take that over the Cardinals rotation. When Adam Wainwright is the ace still at the ripe age, is he 42 now, Zach?
63, I believe.
Okay, something like that. So I was about to say, I remember Atlanta traded him like 3 decades ago. It feels like one of the dumbest trades the Braves ever made, but we won't get into that. Freaking Eli Marrero. That's the Brewers have a great starting rotation. When they made the playoffs 2 years ago in 21 and got knocked out by Atlanta, it's because they had no bats outside of Rowdy Tellez. They've picked up a couple more bats, but I still don't think they have enough offense to compete in this league. And I think their pitchers are going to be frustrated, kind of like we've seen Philly's starting rotation get frustrated, 2-3+ years before this, where, Wheeler and Nola would pitch great games and then the bullpen would either blow it or their offense couldn't do enough to keep them in the game. That's kind of how I feel like this Brewers team is now. So I think the Brewers are going to drop wins. I hate to say it, I think this could very well be a 500 or slightly sub 500 team. Because again, they don't get to feast on the Reds and the Pirates as many times this year because of the new scheduling format where there are far fewer games in division. So I'm going to put the Brewers down. I'm going to say 78 wins. I think the Cubs are going to pass them. All right, Joe, how crazy am I?
No, you're not actually. Look, I think Yelich gets too much credit for one great year, in my opinion. He had one MVP year, and other than that, he's been okay.
MVP year.
Right. I think losing Hunter Renfroe is huge. Or losing Colton Wong is huge. Sure, you added the bats, but now your defense is terrible. Like, you traded one for the other. I think if you're a Milwaukee fan, you traded good defense and mediocre offense to great offense and mediocre defense. So I really don't see them getting better, is what I would think. And I think we may have to switch it from being DeGrom to being Burned or something else, because these guys are gonna get the DeGrom treatment regularly, I think, all year long, and they did last year. I mean, how many starts did Corbin Burns lose where he didn't give up anything? He gave up one run, or the bullpen in the 7th or 8th inning gave up one run, and he doesn't get the win because his team can't hit. So I just don't think that they got any better. I really don't. Wade Miley is not an upgrade. The Reds knew something, or they wouldn't have gotten rid of him, as we saw last year. I mean, Wade Miley pitched 6 starts for Chicago. He's not worth the $3.5 million. And Winker, we'll see what he does. But yeah, no, I don't think you're crazy. I think 79 wins, somewhere around there.
It's telling when Corbin Burns leads MLB in starts at 33 starts last year and has a 12-8 record. That is 13 starts in which he had a no decision. And not only that, he had a 2.94 ERA and he had a whip of .965. He was not the problem. Jason, am I off base? Does this feel like Wheeler Nola from 2-3+ years ago, where they would come out, pitch great, and the bullpen would just absolutely crap out, or the offense wouldn't show up for the whole game? Oh,
absolutely. Thanks for making me relive this. I appreciate it. The Phillies bullpen was historically bad a couple years ago. Setting records bad. So I don't know that the Brewers bullpen will be that terrible, but they did lose a significant piece. And I think we even saw that, with the second half of last season. They traded Hader away. They were right around a wild card spot, and they dropped down. So, yeah, their pen's going to be an issue.
Hey, it benefited you guys because you made it to the World Series. If the Brewers got that third wild card spot, they were one and done. They were not moving on past that.
I won't put Zach through that ringer tonight.
Yeah, sure. We'll see about that. Alex, what do you think about Chicago North?
I don't know how they slid into the Murphy trade with William Contreras, like how they got William Contreras out of that. I actually really love that move for them. I know he's not a great defender, but I really do love that. I think that was a great move for them. But
like God knows they needed a power bat somewhere.
Yep. And I feel like the Brewers, like, I don't think they want to win. Like, these moves don't tell me that they want to win. Like, they want to be decent so that they don't get the same kind of hate from fan bases that, like, the Pirates and the Reds get. But they don't actually want to invest at the level that will take it to the next level so that they can win. But that said, I don't, like I said, I had the Cubs the lowest win total here out of everyone. As a Cubs fan, I think the Brewers are going to have the same win total. I think they're going to be flat this year. I think it's going to be at 86 and 76 as a win. They're going to be second in the Central because I do think their pitching staff is far and away the best in the division. I don't think it's close either. So I think the pitching staff is enough to keep them flat, but boy, could this blow up in their face.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked when it happens either. Zach, what do you think, man?
I mean, you guys are just, this is wonderful. You have no idea how much I would love for what you are saying to come to pass, for the Brewers to be a big fat disappointment. But I'm not buying it. I can't go there. Maybe it's just like superstition, but I still fear them. I still respect them. I think the narrative on the Brewers is that their starting pitching rocks and that, the offense kind of struggles, but I don't hate their lineup. And I'll point out that Willy Adames last year had 31 homers and almost 100 RBIs as well. So, I mean, I think Contreras is a big addition. The dude just hits. I mean, no matter where you're going to put him, awesome deal for them. I also really like getting Jesse Winker back in a more hitter-friendly ballpark. Like, I think you mentioned, Andrew. Mm-hmm. If you look at the guy's numbers, I mean, he's produced offensively in his entire career outside of last year in that, in Seattle, that massive, pitcher's park. So I think he's going to come back a little bit as well. You guys already mentioned losing Colton Wong, Hunter Renfroe. That's significant. But for me, like, this is a team that last year was leading the division at the All-Star break until they jettisoned Josh Hader. And, they're on record that, the players as basically saying, like, that kind of wrecked them emotionally in the locker room. And they went on a slide as soon as that happened. So they did kind of pick it up after that, but the immediate aftermath of that trade just emotionally really kind of messed them up. So I don't think you're going to see that this year. I'm going to go with 89 wins this year.
89.
In part because I don't think they're going to have that midseason collapse that they had last year. The starting pitching is still going to be awesome. I think the offense is better than they get credit for. You guys brought up very legitimate concerns about the defense, though. I think that's probably my biggest concern, along with the bullpen.
Yeah, that defense is not going to be great anywhere across the field.
Zach, I assume you're going to have them as being runner-up in the division there?
Second place. Yep, first losers.
Do you think that love it? Do you think that they get a wild card spot?
I do. I mean, I think 89 wins will do it.
Wow. Wild card spot. I'm just gonna put that in the old prediction here. I'm sorry, man. I don't see a wild card spot coming out of the Central. It's going to be the winner of the East, the second and third place in the East, taking two of them, and then whoever comes out of that bloodbath between the Dodgers and the Padres in the West, I think is going to take the other one personally. But
I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
I think the thing we need to keep track of here or remind ourselves of is, there's less divisional games here. So you're going to have the Brewers, while they don't get to beat up on the Pirates and the Reds as much, they will get to face the Nationals. They'll get to face the Athletics. I do think that they're going to make a push. I know I took them less, but I think their potential is absolutely where you have them, Zach. And I think I would not be surprised if they do capitalize on these other teams and make that run.
Let me see here. Sorry, I was pulling one thing up. Shoot, where is the extended standings from last year? Because I don't remember the Brewers really doing a ton outside of the division.
I think catcher is somewhere you're going to see the drop off there too. I think Caratini is not an everyday catcher. We know that. Alex is Cub fans. He's just not. He's not. William is not an upgrade over Narvaez. So.
Yeah, so here it is. Last year, the Brewers against the NL East, 13-18, against the NL Central, 42-34, against the NL West, 16-19. I'm not sure they're really benefiting the new schedule hardly at all. They played sub 500 baseball against both the East and the East and the West last year. So, hey, could that change? Absolutely. That was last year. This is this year. They did very well in interleague at 15-5. So, there is that. But I don't know, man. The Phillies are as good as last year, if not better. Atlanta is as good as last year, if not better. The Mets, we'll talk about that in a couple weeks. I think they're about where they were. The East is still the top three are still juggernauts. The Marlins are a little bit improved. The Nationals are garbage and will be garbage.
I'd say the Marlins are very improved.
Yeah.
Hey, NL East is a couple weeks away. Come on, you can't take too much away.
We'll get there.
Yeah. In the West, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. The Diamondbacks, we all feel are a very improved team and could be dangerous over the next couple years. They're not quite there yet, but the Diamondbacks are improved. The Dodgers are still the Dodgers. The Padres are the Padres. I don't know. I just don't see Milwaukee picking up a ton of wins more than they did last year, considering they didn't pick up a ton of wins outside of their own division. So, all right.
Time for Zach.
Zach, take it away, man, for the NL Central champion 2022 St. Louis Cardinals.
Yes. Before I get into that, since you were talking about stats versus different teams, I wanted to mention this just so I didn't forget. In preparation for this, I was looking at different splits and things like that, and I found that every division in baseball had at least two teams with a winning record on the road, except for the NL Central. No one in the NL Central had a winning record on the road. I just thought that was really weird, kind of interesting. Even as we transition to the Cardinals, who won 93 games, had a losing record on the road somehow. But they were
crazy.
First, obviously, in the NL Central. I see here you've reminded me in the notes that they were eliminated by the Phillies in the wild card series. Thank you. Getting into the depth chart, Wilson Contreras, new addition at catcher. Excited about that. Backed up by Andrew Kisner, Paul Goldschmidt, MVP at first base, Brendan Donovan at second base. Brendan Donovan is probably the best player that no one has ever heard of. The guy had a 126 OPS plus last year and a 394 on base. Won the Gold Glove for the utility position. So if you don't know Brendan Donovan, the dude's a beast. Nobody knows about him. Nolan Arenado at third, Tommy Edman at short, the best left side of the infield in all of baseball, let alone the NL Central. In the outfield, Tyler O'Neill, Dylan Carlson, Lars Nootbaar. DH, we've got Nolan Gorman listed here. I hope that's not the case for very long. I really want to see Jordan Walker up at the big league club, whether it's in the outfield or DH. I think they have to get him on the field as soon as possible. But then getting into the rotation, this pains me to read a little bit. Adam Wainwright, re-signed him for one last ride. Miles Michaelis, Jordan Montgomery, Jack Flaherty, and Steven Matz. Anyway, bullpen. Ryan Helsley, breakout season last year. He's the closer. Unbelievable season that he had. Really cool to watch him really just arrive. Giovanni Gallegos, Jordan Hicks throwing 107 miles per hour. Dakota Hudson, ground ball machine when he's not walking guys. Andre Palante, sneaky good. And then Zach Thompson, who can offer some additional length out of the bullpen if they need some extra innings. They re-signed Adam Wainwright, as we talked about, and the free agent acquisitions, Wilson Contreras. That's it. They lost Yadier Molina and Albert Pujols, obviously, to retirement. They also lost Jose Quintana, who they got at the trade deadline, and Corey Dickerson, who didn't do a whole lot last year in his outfield / DHing, but I think he had some crazy hot streak at one point that kind of made his numbers look a little bit better than they actually were. But yeah, just kind of getting – sorry, go ahead.
Well, not only did you lose Yadier and Albert to retirement, you lost them to the Hall of Fame because that's where those guys are headed.
I agree with you. I appreciate it. It was such a pleasure to watch those guys and their careers.
Both first ballot easily.
Yeah, no question.
But kind of getting into last year, it was such a fun season to be a Cardinals fan. I mean, regardless of the way it all ended, I mean, getting to witness 2 MVP finalists put up huge numbers, the emergence of Ryan Helsley, like I said, as the closer, and then, of course, historic second half that Pujols put together, which culminated in 700 home runs. I mean, Pujols, I got the jersey on. He's my favorite player of all time. He is the reason that I'm sitting here. He's the reason that I'm a massive baseball fan. So I love the dude. It was beyond awesome to see him go out the way that he did, especially, the first half of the season. It kind of just seemed like it was going to be a nice, little farewell tour, but then to actually contribute in a big way in the second half, helping them to the division title. It was so cool to see and amazing for younger generations who never really saw him in his prime to see, even just for half a season, how insane he can be. So regardless of the way it ended, I'm going to look back on this season, and it was such a fun ride. In terms of the additions, I mean, obviously we knew they needed to address the catcher position, which they did. I love bringing in Wilson Contreras. It's the first time in probably 5 years or so that we're looking to get any sort of offensive production from behind the dish. So I am excited about that. Other than that, they kind of just said, let's run it back, which doesn't really surprise me, given, like I said before, they tend to be extremely frugal in free agency historically. They like to build their team through the draft. They like to, make savvy trades for guys like Goldschmidt and Arenado. Free agency is not how they do it. So not terribly surprised about that, although it is frustrating as a Cardinals fan. I already kind of mentioned as well, one of the additions, if you will, that I am excited about is Jordan Walker. He's the number 4 prospect in all of baseball. I think he has like a 913 OPS in the minors. The dude just smashes the ball, and I hope I could see them having him in the minors to start the year. But my hope is that by May, June, he's a regular fixture in there, and I'm so excited to watch him this year.
Yeah, Zach, talk about Jordan Walker. I do a lot of baseball card stuff, and you can usually tell the potential of a player by how popular their draft cards are from their pre-rookie season and their rookie season. And Jordan Walker was very highly sought after. His cards were selling big. So I fully expect that Jordan Walker is going to be an absolute stud for you guys. This is the only thing I'll say about it, but I appreciated Ryan Helsley in the wild card round. That's all I'm going to say. But I think the Cardinals, they got that offense. They absolutely upgraded at catcher as far as the offense goes, and I mean it's hard to beat Yachty as far as the defensive side of things goes, but you got almost as close as you possibly could with Wilson there. So, I mean, if anything, they overall upgraded at the catcher position.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been kind of it's been a rough spot for us the last, several years. I mean, Yachty's defense has always been, pretty solid. But the offense it really hasn't been there for us. I think an underrated part of, that's something that might not be talked about a lot in terms of replacing offense is, they need to replace the offense of Albert Pujols. As crazy as that sounds, I mean, the guy had a legitimately good year for a DH. I'm curious to kind of see how they supplement that with, again, guys like Nolan Gorman, maybe Juan Yepes, Jordan Walker, as well as I've already talked about. So I think that'll be interesting. But overall, I like the lineup a lot. The defense is phenomenal as well. Really, the sore spot for this team is the starting pitching. It doesn't match. It doesn't match the rest of the team. For years, I've been wanting them to address the starting pitching in a more significant way in the off season, and they just continue to disappoint me. I mean, whether it's Carlos Rodon or Kevin Gausman, Chris Bassett, Jose Quintana, let alone guys like DeGrom and Scherzer. I mean, we're just not in on any of them. And instead, we opt to just keep running it back with 50-year-old Adam Wainwright and injury-prone Jack Flaherty. And, I like Miles Michaelis, but he's a 2 on a lot of teams. He's probably a 3 on, say, the Phillies or the Mets. Jordan Montgomery is a nice 3, but my point is the rotation doesn't scare anybody come the postseason. And I think that's ultimately what bit them this year. And, I think that they're built for the regular season. I think they're going to win the division, make the postseason, but I think they could find themselves in a similar spot to last year, to where you're not going to be good enough to get one of the top 2 seeds. So you're probably going to be playing in a 3-game series, and you're going to be playing in a 3-game series with no real ace. I think that's problematic, especially when you're going up against a team like the Phillies who has 2 aces. I mean, it makes a difference in the playoffs. And Jason, you mentioned Helsley. Part of the reason that happened the way it did is they had to extend Helsley beyond, into the 8th inning, because they didn't have the starting pitching to go deeper into that game. It all kind of it compounds on itself. So it's frustrating as a Cardinals fan that they haven't addressed the starting pitching. And I think they're going to be in a similar spot to where they've been. Like I said, I think they're going to win the division. I'll give them 93 wins again. But I still have major hesitation about what they're able to do in the postseason, short of just, getting hot at the right time. I mean, their last 2 World Series in 2006 and 2011, they weren't the best team on paper either of those years. And they just kind of, just make it happen. So it could happen at any point, but yeah.
And the Cardinals are always a team that you don't really count out when they make the playoffs. They are always dangerous. I mean, even like if we want to look at this past offseason or this past playoffs, I mean, yeah, the one game, I think it was it was a 2-0 game, I think. But that first game, aside from the pen and the out of nowhere Arenado forgetting how to play defense, I mean, the Cardinals were in line to win that first game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they win that series, who knows what happens, but they're always dangerous. Like I knew that, like we were chatting in a sports chat here where, I hated the fact that that the Phillies were going to be playing the Cardinals because it's the playoffs. It's St. Louis in the playoffs. You don't expect to win against the Cardinals in the playoffs.
Yeah, they have the pedigree, which is a weird kind of thing because obviously every year is different, every team is different, but some teams just kind of have that magic, and they've been pretty successful for sure.
Yeah, I still haven't forgiven the Cardinals for 2019. So yeah, I don't like seeing the Cardinals in the playoffs ever. Yeah, that year, yeah, we just don't like to talk about that year. So yeah, I get your frustration, man, because there was a lot of really, really, really good starting pitching available as free agents this year. You had Verlander, you had DeGrom. I mean, good God.
Even keeping Quintana, I mean, who we
Yeah.
had, on the team already,
Yeah,
that wouldn't have been that expensive.
Yeah, Quintana would not have been an extravagant spend to keep in St. Louis. So, and I understand that's the Cardinals' mantra. They never really go big on free agents, never. But you would think with a hole as big as their starting rotation is, because it is, when Adam Wainwright is your ace and he's ready to go out in a walker to the pitcher's mound because of how old he is, this is a problem. Like, this is like giving me the end of the last really good years of the Yankees, early 2000s, where the Yankees were just running out these guys in their late 30s, early 40s because they still had them and they thought they could still do something, but they couldn't. Like, I'm almost feeling those kind of vibes. That said, CeCe could still pitch in his 40s. I'll give him that. But what do they have left in Wainwright? Because Wainwright did not have a great season last year, and he really faded pretty hard towards the end of it. Great comment from our dad. Does the pitch clock account for old age? Well, Adam Wainwright might hope so this year.
He needs to put his cheaters on to be able to see it.
That's fair.
Zach, I do have a question for you, though, because I know you mentioned that they do a lot of different trades and things like that to kind of build their roster. Aside from Jordan Walker, do they either, one, have a good pitching, like a few pitching prospects in the farm system, or do they have the system to trade for some pitchers, around the midway point of the season?
I don't think they will. They have the guys. They've got some nice prospects. Mason Wynn is a shortstop, but he's a pretty highly rated prospect. They've got another pitcher, Tink Hence, I believe his name is, throws super hard. So my guess is that their preference would be to develop those guys and bring them along, as opposed to trying to make a move.
Yeah, I'm just looking at their top 30 right now. Hence is the number 6th ranked prospect. They have him as a single A level, so he's probably not going to be coming up, I wouldn't think, for at least 2 years. Looks like their most major league ready prospects are Matthew Liberatore and Gordon Graceffo. Graceffo was Double A last year. Liberatore, it looks like, is about ready to come up.
Oh, Liberatore.
He's already been up.
He's been up. Okay.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So
hasn't been the most impressive.
You got him from the Rays, I think, right?
Yep, that's correct. That might have been part of the Rosarena trade, possibly.
Yeah, because I remember collecting his first Bowman cards for a while, and then the moment he started getting traded, he got traded over, and then started making his way towards. I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to sell these a while. So,
like, the only other guys I see in here that are like Major League AAA, you're all the way down at 21. Jake Walsh, Freddie Pacheco at 22, Connor Thomas at 24, Ryan Lutos at 26. So I'm not really. Granted, I don't really know your farm system that well. I don't know these guys that well, but it really doesn't look like you guys have a whole lot ready to bring up. And ready to step in if needed quickly, and the one thing too with Wainwright being so old, you have to worry about injury, just from age. I know he doesn't really throw hard anymore, so you have less of the risk of ligament strain and tear as you do with a power pitcher, but still, and that's always a risk with any of the pitchers. I know Matz has not had the best track record over the last couple seasons as well. So,
yeah, just to kind of give you an idea of what the front office is thinking in terms of the rotation. When the offseason was getting underway, I think they were asked, like, hey, you're going to go out and sign any free agents and, any starting pitching. And I think their response was basically, we have 6 starters, 2 of which, or I should say, 3 of which are Adam Wainwright in his final year. Dakota Hudson, who, as we see, is probably he's probably going to start in the bullpen, and Steven Matz, who essentially didn't pitch the first year that we had him.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, their attitude is very much like, we like who we have, and they shouldn't.
Yeah. Do you think you're going to get anything out of Flaherty? I know he was coming back off of Tommy John, I believe, and you really didn't see much of him last year because of it.
I mean,
he was nuts 2 years ago until he got hurt.
Yeah, the thing with Flaherty, I mean, it almost feels like a Carson Wentz kind of situation here, because Flaherty's best moment was the second half of 2019. Where he was arguably the best pitcher in the National League over the second half of that season, dominant. Then, of course, the 2020 season, I think he got hurt at some point there. He hasn't pitched a lot since then. He's been hurt. And so that's the main concern with Flaherty, is that he just has not proven that he can be healthy. And so from a fan's perspective, I'm not counting on him to do anything, whereas the Cardinals are plugging him in as one of their starting five.
Yeah.
So what do you think you have for the Cardinals win total?
I'm going to keep what they had last year at 93.
Which will probably be enough for the Central, I would think. Alex, you've been awfully quiet, man. What are you thinking?
I have a couple of thoughts. One, remember the Mets when they almost had 4 aces back in like 2015? One of those aces almost was Steven Matz. Who knows? I mean, he could be good. He's not going to be, because only one of those pitchers is actually still good, and that's DeGrom. But he could be. The starting rotation, I don't know what the Cardinals were thinking. I actually think it is, they could trade for someone in keeping with my very realistic take so far, such as Tucker Barnhart being MVP. I'm going to say that the Cardinals are going to trade for Ohtani midseason. And that is going to solve their pitching needs. And I'm going to go that they're going to hit 99 wins.
Zach, we need to go back to you here. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I'm getting excited here now. getting my hopes up.
Alex, who are they sending out to LA to get Ohtani? Are they sending both Arenado and Goldschmidt, because they don't have the prospect load to get Ohtani?
I think Jordan Walker would 100% have to be part of that.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Well, Zach, just so you know, Alex also works at our company. So if that does not happen and you feel like you need to talk to him, you could probably find him on Teams there.
Got it.
No, I do think that here's the one thing. First of all, the Angels are a horribly run organization.
Yes.
They don't do anything efficiently. Other than re-signing Mike Trout, they don't do anything that's that good. So they wouldn't have to give up what Ohtani's actually worth. No, I know that's unlikely. I do think, though, that they could trade for a starting pitcher. I think that with Goldschmidt coming off the books at the end of this year, that they'll be willing to potentially trade for a pitcher and use some money for him. Wainwright will be coming off the books. So I do think that's a possibility that they'll trade for someone. But yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic about the Cardinals, because more than most teams in baseball, what they touch is gold. It's at least silver. So I think that I got to trust them, as much as I hate to say it. I hate that I have to respect the Cardinals organization as a Cubs fan, but I do. And I think 99 wins.
Yeah. I mean, number 2 all time to the Yankees by a long margin in World Series titles. So, yeah. Joe?
I'm gonna split the difference. I'm gonna go 96 wins.
96.
I believe in what the Cardinals do. Obviously, the shirt is in good fun, Zach. I think the Cardinals are obviously the best of this division, and our rivalry is always pretty fun. But I'm glad to have Yachty and Pujols out of that one, because they've absolutely crushed the Cubs for 15 years. So I'm definitely glad to see that gone. But I think they're easily the class of this division. I was really impressed with Helsley and Gallegos. They were reliever of the week multiple times too. I mean, Gallegos in particular. So I really like what they have. I think Matz, the biggest problem with Steven Matz is that he was in the Mets organization for the early part of his career because, and you guys know how much I am attuned to some of the Mets stuff. Obviously, my father-in-law is a huge Mets fan. When Matz came up, it was, this guy's got the potential to be really special. And then, of course, the Mets did what they've done with every starting pitcher for years, and that's mismanaged them and let them play hurt when they shouldn't have, or,
just work them dry.
Right. So
or say, you don't want to get an MRI. Oh, you don't have to get an MRI. We'll let you pitch anyway.
Yep, that's a shoulder. You're good to go.
Yeah.
Mark Pryor syndrome.
Yeah, basically.
100% agree. Yeah, I think he could be special if I think he's had some time to heal. I think he's had some time in a quality organization like yours. He could be better. He could be interesting to watch this year. To me, Wainwright is the only pitcher that you're like, just how much are you going to get out of him? I think what we've seen with the Cubs this offseason is that you notice that Hendricks is not going to be your day one ace anymore. Yeah. And I think it would be smart if the Cardinals did the same, but it's just who do they put to replace him at the top?
It's probably going to be Michaelis opening day.
Right. So I think as long as they're smart with that and they go, well, yeah, you are Adam Wainwright, but you're 50% Adam Wainwright and not
you're not the Adam Wainwright of old anymore.
So but I do, again, best infield across the diamond in all of the NL Central, without a doubt.
One of the best in the MLB, honestly.
Really, yeah. Honestly, I like the outfield. And you got a guy like Lars Nootbaar that's one of the best baseball names ever.
Love Lars.
Second best in the division.
Right. But I think that, I really like what the Cardinals have here, and I'm not the only thing I don't like about the Cardinals is their catcher, and he can go pound sand. So
pretty sure he told the Cubs to do that too.
Multiple times.
Look, last year I had that extend Wilson Contreras shirt on like every week for weeks. And I would like to extend something else in Wilson Contreras' direction after the way he's been talking this offseason. So
I think he feels very disrespected by the Cubs organization with what transpired there. So
do I blame him? No. But if you're going to, you left, Cubs fans hate ownership too. So if you had just left and signed with the Cardinals and just kind of kept quiet, the odds of you getting a standing ovation for 5 or 7 minutes when the first time you come back to Wrigley is pretty high. The way that you've been bashing the organization and the fans as a whole kind of makes the fans go,
Do we know when the Cardinals first visit Wrigley? Because I will be curious to see what that reaction ends up being.
I am pulling that up as we speak. Give me a minute.
While you do that, I can kind of go here. Joe, you mentioned how you're glad that Yadier is out of the division there because he would kill the Cubs. I mean, Yadier Molina would basically go from 0 speed to like 3 speed against the Cubs if necessary. But I think the Cardinals have the best catcher in the division, who they got from that other team in Chicago. They have the best defensive infielder in major leagues. They have one of the most solid outfields. They have a great pen who can try and kind of hold down the fort from the starters. I do agree that the starters are the weak point here. But again, I think your starters, Zach, I think the Cardinals will get just enough out of them to be successful. I'm going to take them higher. I'm going to go bold and say I'm going to take them at 98 wins.
Wow.
I think they make a trade at some point this year to better their team. I would not be surprised to see them trade Jordan Walker to get a starter to try and push for a deeper run this year. And yeah, so 98 wins. They're going to win the division, and I'll even go one further. I think they'll at least make the divisional round this year.
First place and divisional round. Wow.
If we're doing playoff predictions, though,
Not really,
Cardinals.
but I just figured I'd say that.
But they're going to lose in the World Series. I really do think the Cardinals are a good team, and I think if they make that trade, even if it's not Ohtani, it should be. I do think they can make it there. They get magic every 5 to 8 years. They get some magic, and this is the year that they're going to get some magic. That the East is going to beat itself up. The Padres are going to underachieve because that's what the Padres do, and the Dodgers can't win it every year. So,
Dodgers haven't won it since 2020.
yeah.
And even then, that was the first time that they won it in 30 years.
Yeah.
Well, we all know that they really won it. 2017? They really did.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. That it's garbage that has not been changed, frankly. So
That's a story for another time.
yeah. So the Cardinals do not visit Chicago until May 8th, 9th, and 10th for a 3-game series in Chicago. Looks like that will be on the East Coast will be 7:40 start times for each game, so no afternoon games. In that set will be all evening games, and I'm sure the Chicago Bluebirds will still be very much out and about and quite heavily inebriated by that point to make sure that Mr. Contreras hears it from what they think of what he has been saying this offseason. I think that's a safe bet.
And what I would compare it to is, when LeBron left Cleveland, people got super pissed about it, and people always tried to say it was not that he left, it was how he left.
Yeah,
that's how this is with Contreras. It's not that you left, we knew you were leaving. It's how you left and how you reacted once you left.
Yeah. It's like, look at Johnny Damon. He went from the Red Sox to the Yankees, but he wasn't bashing Boston on the way out. So while he was booed upon return to Boston, because good God, the Red Sox will never cheer for a Yankee player unless he got beaned. They didn't boo him with venom because he was a Yankee, because they remember the good times they had with him. Yeah, this is definitely not that.
See, now I'm picturing Wilson having a press conference at the Gateway Arch saying, I'm taking my talents to St. Louis.
Oh, geez. Must be broadcasted across ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, ESPN Plus, and all the other ESPN networks, including
ABC, Disney Plus, all of it.
Exactly. Oh, man. So, I guess I have to make a prediction here. I'm more trending down with Zach. The Cardinals are still the class of the division, no question about it. They have the best defense in the division. Their starting pitching is not terrifying in the slightest. The bullpen's good, though. I'm going to say probably 92, 94, somewhere in there. I think it's still going to be enough to win the division. But the Central, as it's been, I feel like the last couple of years, the Central is the weak link of the 3 divisions in the National League right now. It's not a strength by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, if we're making all division teams, the Central could put up a strong team, pulling guys from each team. But individually, I don't feel any of the 5 teams in the Central will be able to compete with the juggernauts out of the East or the West right now. I just don't see it yet. A couple of years, maybe, not right now. Zach, Alex, guys, it's been great having you on. This has been an absolute blast. Like I said at the top of the show, this is the largest panel we have ever had on Dollar Dogs and Beer. This has been absolutely awesome to have, a little bit of back and forth with the Cubs and Cardinals fan. Not only that, but the overall bashing of the Milwaukee Brewers, and hopefully that will continue in perpetuity until the end of time, because the hell with the Brewers.
Next year we'll have to try and get a Brewers fan to join just to see 3 of the teams represented and just see what happens.
Jason, you literally want you and I to just kick back with popcorn and beer and just watch the fireworks, huh?
Oh yeah, I would just tune in just to watch. Absolutely.
All right, guys. We do have one scheduling change coming up. The AL East preview, we are pushing back a week. That's going to be on March 20th instead of March 13th. Scheduling conflict as Big Jim's wife, Dana, and Jason's wife, Karen, their birthdays are the 13th. I didn't realize they shared a birthday.
They share a birthday, which was hilarious and amazing when we found that out.
And my birthday's on the 14th, so that week's pretty much wiped out to do that week. And we really try not to do anything on the Sunday because, we just, we did that before, and it's weird with trying to get the week crossover, the old week, the new week. So we're just going to bump that ahead a week to 320. So we'll be doing 2 back-to-back again at the end of March. 320 will be the AL East. 327 will be the NL East. And I know Joe is going to be taking the night off because it's potentially going to be a very, very big panel of NL East. And Joe's just like, you know what? I'm just going to watch you guys tear each other apart.
I don't know that Joe's actually said he's taking that night off.
That's true. I offered it. I offered it. So Joe might still. I know we have at least 2 Mets fans coming on, so Joe might come on to support them.
And I believe Ron's going to join us, so that we have an extra Phillies fan in here.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to hear back from a couple Braves fans to see if they can help give me some moral support in dealing with the utter mess that's going to be 327, because that's going to be a kick 'em out, drag 'em out episode, and it's going to be a lot of fun to do, as that'll also be our last episode before the start of the regular season. By that point, I believe the World Baseball Classic will be over, so we can talk about how good, hopefully, that's going to be this year. I believe I saw that there are 65 All-Stars will be represented across all of the teams. Japan's a heavy favorite. Venezuela looks really good. The United States looks really good. So we're not going to be covering the World Baseball Classic game by game, but we will definitely recap it towards the end. It's going to be an exciting tournament to watch. I mean, it got canceled in 2020 because of COVID. So you've got a lot of players that have been chomping at the bit that are ready to go, that have missed the World Baseball Classic. So, we will cover that once it's through. And, I'm excited to watch it, honestly, guys. It's going to be a really, really good tournament this year. All right, guys. So Zach, are you on Twitter anywhere? Do you have a handle you want us to toss up for you?
No, don't look me up.
Okay. Alex, I already know you're anonymous. You're basically off all social media that's ever existed. All right. So, guys, you can find us anywhere you find podcasts, primarily Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple. You can see us on the YouTube channel live, Facebook Live, Twitter. We also live and we also tweet from there as well. Merchandise is on redbubble.com. The Facebook page is facebook.com/dollardogsandbeer. Twitter page is DDAB_podcast. I'm on there at PyroLord314. Jason's on there at JRecker300. Joe's on there at JoltonJoe35. We are presented by Dark Arrow Podcast LLC, and we're sponsored by the phenomenal Whiskey and Blade Barbershop in Lidditz. Guys, may your dogs always cost $1. May your beer always be cold. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you in a couple weeks.